Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I am the GM Philosopher, and today we are talking about 3 D&D description tactics for amazing scenes. As you know, as the GM, it is on you to describe scenes in a fun way, in an immersive way, in a way that not only lets your characters know what's going on, but also that engages their interest and makes them interested in what's going on. And I have 3 tactics I use for this, and I'm just going to dive into it, talk about this, starting with tip number 1, use depth of detail for impact. So let's just say, for example, that I want to describe, and I'll pop an image up here on the screen, I want to describe this werewolf to my characters. Maybe they walk into a room, or rather kick the door open, and it's dark and musty in there, and then there's a werewolf in there. Now, how I describe this is really going to make a difference in how they perceive the scene. So I could go very shallow depth of detail. They walk in, and I say, you walk in and you see a werewolf. He has teeth and claws. Roll initiative. Okay, so that's one way to describe it. That's not quite, it's not very deep, and it doesn't create much impact, right? Now, let's say that I go another level deeper. You walk into the room. What you see in the other side of the room is a tall form, 7 foot tall, muscular, strong shoulders covered with fur. Canine teeth are barred. You can hear the guttural growling as he paces the room, staring at you, almost as if he's stalking you. You see large claws on his hands. Suddenly he attacks. Roll for initiative. Right, so this is a little better. This is a little better. But what we really want to do is we want to create maximum impact in a pivotal scene like this. You can also separate non-critical scenes from critical scenes by using more depth of detail. So for example, if I don't want something to have a big impact, I don't give it a deeper description. But if I wanted to create a lot of impact, I create a deeper description. So I want this to be very impactful. I want them to really be like, oh my gosh, it's a werewolf. So here's how, more like what I would do to describe the scene for maximum impact. So you kick the door open. Dust falls from the dingy ceiling. The room is dark. Even with your lantern, the dust from the door kicking partially obscures your vision. Suddenly your nostrils are filled with something. What is that? Roll perception check. That is the smell of wet dog. But there's another odor in the air. Roll another perception check. Is that the smell of rotting flesh? Then you hear it. You hear a thud and another thud. The floorboards creak and groan beneath the weight. They're like, what is it? What is it? Can I see? You look, roll perception check, see if you can see through the dust. Holds up the lantern, looks through the dust. You do see a form moving on the other side of the room. Its footfalls slamming into the ground. Then you hear a low growl. And this isn't a growl like a simple don't bother me animal growl. This is a growl that strikes fear, or that threatens to strike fear to the very heart of your body. Quick, roll a wisdom save. They roll. The ones who fail, I think in my head, DC check 13. The ones who fail, I say, you truly are shaken and you feel fear inside your body. Now let me describe the form. The form is tall. You make it out 6 foot tall. It's roughly humanoid, but wait a minute. It's walking with a slightly strange gait. And then as it turns its head, you see a glowing eye through the dust. And then you see the silhouette of a head, canine, as its jaws open. Rows of sharp canine teeth are exposed. Suddenly, its head jerks to the side as it looks at you. Its lips curl back in a ferocious, terrifying growl as it braces itself and then lunges at you, teeth snapping, jaw agape. You can see fresh blood slinging through the air as it crosses the room in an instant. Roll initiative. Okay, so see, this last description used a greater depth of detail. I went into it. Now, I was obviously dragging it on a bit to kind of describe what you could do if you had a bunch of time. At any point, one of the players might say, I shoot it with my bow, right? And then it starts initiative. But you can carry that description into, the creature reacting to the attack, charging. You can use all those actions as different opportunities to describe it. So, for example, when it first lunges, one of the guys might put up their shield or whatever, and maybe it tries to attack, but it misses. I'm going to say you see the hair on its back bristle. You see that its feet are roughly humanoid, but it has canine-looking legs and canine-looking arms with these large claws. And you see that its eyes are darting back and forth in a knowing glance as it prepares for battle. Like, it just describing it, continuing to describe it, different elements of it. Maybe I describe how it's scarred up and how its face is all scarred up, like it looks like it's been in dozens of battles and all these different things, right? So I could also mention, like, you didn't see it before, but you realize there's a corpse at the other side of the room. As you're exchanging blows with the monster, you keep glancing over and you can't help but notice, most of the insides have just been spilled outward. It is a bloody heap on the floor. The stench at this point is almost overpowering, right? You can, whatever it is, you just keep adding these elements to it. Another thing you can do is you can kind of describe how it feels as they fight it. You could say, even if the creature misses because they have an armor class, but you could say, basically you block it with your shield, but you feel the force of the blow and you realize this is no normal creature. You have fought wolves before, you have fought men before, but this is something entirely different. And you realize you will be lucky to escape with your life. So it's like you give more gravity to it, right? So it just helps to describe. Okay. Tip number 2, engage as many senses as possible. Now, in my example in the beginning, I used several senses. They smelled, they heard, right? They saw, obviously, but you can also do other things. Like, for example, when the creature slams against one of the character's shield, even if they miss the attack, you could say this impact kind of knocks you to the side, rattles your head around in your helmet. You taste fresh blood. You realize that, if that blow had hit you, it would have done incredible amount of damage, right? Or you could even, when I talked about how you sense the smell of wet dog, you could even say you almost like it's so pungent that it is like a taste in your mouth. Like, so you could use that here. You can also use a sense of touch because, while the floorboards were thudding, you could say you feel the vibrations through your legs as the creature stalks you from the other side of the room, right? So it's just like these different things. You can engage more senses. And to be honest, the more senses you engage, the better. It doesn't always make sense to engage all of them, but there are ways that you can incorporate the other senses. And a lot of times GMs will just use sight and sound because these are the two most obvious senses that people are going to use, but they also forget there's the sense of, there's scent, there's taste, there's touch, and also there's the idea of a sixth sense. It's like players might sense things that aren't readily apparent by any of the other senses. So, for example, you might say, roll a perception check, or maybe even roll an insight check. They roll. Maybe they get a good roll. You say something indescribable, but seemingly noticeable, as if your senses are picking something up that you can't really explain, but you have a feeling that something is about to happen. Like you look around and something doesn't feel right. You really feel like you're missing something. And what it might be is another werewolf up in the rafters getting ready to pounce down. Maybe this werewolf's mate is getting ready to join the fight and attack from behind, and there's a chance that they can see it, right? So it's like you can add some other senses in there even so, and that helps to describe for greater impact and give players more agency. Okay. So anyway, engage as many senses as possible. And then tip number 3, use descriptions that leave some mystery to the imagination. So sometimes it is actually beneficial to leave a little bit to the imagination, not to describe every single thing, right? So for example, you could spend 5 minutes giving a very detailed description of what this werewolf looks like. You could also show a picture, something like that. And these are good things. Oftentimes, providing an in-depth description is a great approach, or showing an image on a screen, whatever it is, can be a really good approach. But sometimes it's actually good to leave a little bit of mystery, and it can create a lot of impact. So, for example, you might say it's completely dark, suddenly a pair of glowing eyes, and then something rushes towards you. You hear the floorboards pound as the heavy footfalls thrust the creature towards you. You hear growling and then snapping as seemingly canine teeth come at you out of the dark. Quick, roll initiative, right? And then they're like, well, what's going on? Is it a werewolf? It's like, roll a perception check. They kind of roll, and you say, you see fur, the silhouette in the moonlight. You smell wet dog. The scent just permeates your nostrils, and there's a taste of blood in the air. Is it possible that you've stumbled upon this creature's fresh kill? You look around, oh no, that wasn't mud you were standing in. That is a body, right? Whatever it is, right? So it's like you're holding back a lot of information, only giving little snippets of things to create kind of like almost like a creepy impact. They're going to guess what it is, but sometimes they may not completely know what it is. It's like, well, is it a werewolf or is it a dire wolf? Is it walking on two legs? It's like in the dark, it's hard to tell right now. You'll have to roll another perception check or wait until visibility improves or whatever the case is, right? You have to gather more information. So, sometimes withholding just a little bit of detail can be massively impactful. All right, that's going to be it. That's going to finish up this video. Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I hope that these tips help to give you some inspiration for your next D&D game. I'm here every single day creating content about the best game in the world, D&D, to help you have better D&D games. So get out there and run some D&D either this week or this weekend. And if you don't have a game going, you know what? Start one. Find some players and get one rolling, because D&D is super fun and everyone should play it. And that's going to be it for this one. Feel free to check back and watch more of my videos. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one.